Hello! Welcome to the Great Bishopswood Baking Show. This week in the Camper Kitchen, we're going to be making quiches. Usually, a quiche is done in a larger pie dish, but we're going to be making mini ones. It's important to remember that when we are cooking, we need to make sure that we are being safe. Today we're going to be using knives, sauteing in a pan, over a stove, and using an oven. During these times, make sure that you have an adult supervision if you are not comfortable. To begin, we're going to start sauteing the vegetables. Today we're going to be using 1 small red pepper, 1 small red onion, and 8 ounces of spinach. So to start the sauteing process, we are going to cut up our vegetables. As you can see, as I've chopped the peppers, I've made them into little cubes. So now we're going to move on to red onion. I've already got a little bit of it chopped, and as you can see, that's fairly fine. And now I'm going to do more chopping and finish up the rest of the onion. So now that I've finished cutting up my red pepper and my red onion, we're going to move on to sauteing. Now we're also going to be using spinach, and usually I would chop it up very finely before I put it in the pan, or I would just put it in the pan and let it wilt. But today we'll be using frozen spinach. The other, if you're chopping it up, you would be using raw spinach. But today I'm going to be using frozen spinach, so I'm not going to go through that process. So to begin sauteing, I'm going to turn my burner on to medium heat. Now I'm going to take a tablespoon of butter and I'm going to put it in this pan. As you can see, the butter has started to melt and is bubbling away. What we want to do is we want to spread it out over the pan, and first we're going to be putting in the vegetables. Sauteing is fairly simple. All you want to do is, with your vegetables in the pan, you kind of mix them around, and you want them to just get evenly cooked. And I'm going to come back later and I'm going to show you what it looks like. For now, I'm just going to saute. The sauteing is going really well. I've taken out the spinach so you can see better the caramelization of the onions. So, as you may be able to see, the onions here are a little bit browner and they're a little bit lighter in color, and that's because they've been caramelized, and that's something you want. It has a sweeter flavor and a stronger, lighter flavor. I think that I'm done sauteing. We're going to move on to making a pie crust for our little quiches. Start with 2 cups of flour. Then you're going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. This is a half teaspoon, so I'm going to be doing 2 half teaspoons, but you would in all do 1 teaspoon. Then I am going to do a half cup of canola oil, and then 1/4 cup of milk. And now I'm just going to mix them together. So this is one of my favorite crust recipes. I remember making it when I was really little. It's the recipe that my family always uses to make blueberry pies and to make pumpkin pies for Thanksgiving, apple pies. I really love pie, so I've come to really love this recipe. Now I am done with the crust. Now that I've finished sauteing and I have made my crust, I'm going to move on to making the filling of my quiche. So I have cracked 9 eggs. So I'm going to take these 9 eggs and I'm going to pour them into a larger mixing bowl. Now I'm going to put a cup of milk in. and then a half teaspoon of salt. Now I'm going to whisk them all together. Before I move on to putting all the ingredients together, I'm going to start by greasing my muffin tins. This is where I'm going to be cooking my mini quiches. What I like to do is I like to take a paper towel, put a tiny bit of butter on it, and then grease the muffin tins. You want to make sure you get the bottom and the sides. Having greased my muffin tins, I'm now going to start rolling out my dough. I'm going to be using a rolling pin for this. So to make my crusts, I'm just pressing down a little cup, twisting it, and then it's going to make a circular shape of dough, and that's what I'm going to put in my muffin tins. It looks a little bit like this. If that isn't working, you can cut around it with a butter knife to get the right shape. So here are my greased muffin tins. And to make the crust, I'm going to take some of the crust dough that I cut out, and I'm now just going to press it against the sides and then pull it up. And what I want to do is to get it up to the top, all pressed with no holes. As you can see here, as I'm doing it, I have a little bit of a hole, but I'm going to fix it as I go. So as you can see, I haven't been able to get it all the way to the top, and I have some holes in the bottom, so I'm going to use some extra dough to patch it, and then I'm going to go and finish all of these. Now I have filled the muffin tins with the pie crust. As you can see, it's pretty full, and there aren't too many holes that I needed to patch up. Now I'm going to move on to filling these with vegetables and then the egg mixture. So now I'm going to start putting the vegetables that we sauteed earlier into the bottom of all these tins. So here is what it looks like when I've filled my muffin tins with the vegetables inside of the pie crust. Now I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of cheddar cheese into each of these tins, just a tiny bit. Now that I've done that, I'm going to start adding egg to my little quiches. Now it's time to let it bake for 10 minutes. I'm gonna do some dishes and I'll be right back. I think these are pretty much done. So I'm just gonna take them out, put them on a cooling rack, and then cut them out to put on a tray. So here are the finished quiches, just out of the oven. I'm gonna let them cool for just a bit, and then I'm gonna take them out, sprinkle some cheese on top, and they're ready to eat. It's very hot today, so I'm just helping them cool. They do this on the Great British Baking Show, so I'm gonna assume it works. I'm gonna do the rest of these in just a minute, but right now I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of cheese on these. This is really good. Thank you for watching the Great Bishopswood Baking Show and joining me and making some mini quiches. I hope you had a really great time, and we see you again soon. Bye!